Keeping it real, right, and funky. Funky politics.
I came to bring the pain, hardcore from the brain. Let's go inside my astral plane. Find out my mental, based on instrumental record. Hey, so I can write monumental methods. I'm not the king, but this is decaf. I stick 'em for the cream. Check it, just how deep can get.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazukia Network. I am DC, sitting in here with my longtime co-host, Doc Ward. Doc, what's up, man?
Man, I got a sermon in my pocket and a song in my heart. They're both pretty funky because you can't tell them apart.
Lord have mercy.
No, man.
Boy,
it's all about funk today.
You know what? And we're visiting again with one of the most phenomenal women that this show has ever had the opportunity to have on, right?
Absolutely.
Her name is Sadiqa. Sadiqa Reynolds, who happens to be the president and executive director of the National Urban League of Louisville. And
the Louisville Urban League.
There you go. Get it right. Louisville Urban League.
The Louisville Urban League.
Today.
Okay.
But tomorrow she could be,
at the Louisville Urban League.
Tomorrow. Cause,
I was in D.C. and we were throwing your name around up there because Jerron needs some help up there. And so.
Yeah, Jerron,
he just can't seem to get it over there. But we don't want you to go. We don't want you to go work for President Trump. We just don't want it to happen.
Jerron works for us now, man.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
She didn't work for
Jerron doesn't work for him anymore.
Kellyanne called about that.
Yeah, she came and worked for us.
Whatever. Anyway, Sadiqa, it is so good to have you back on Funky Politics. And, you were here with us a while ago, and we talked, and you gave us a lot of great information, especially about the state of Black Louisville. And we want to pick up with your activities since then. What have you been doing, the famous Sadiqa Reynolds?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you all so much for allowing me to come back on. It's always fun. Too bad people can't hear all the stuff we talk about before we go on the radio.
Praise the Lord.
The game is to be sold, not told.
I have been working on so many things. The Louisville Urban League's focus is on jobs, justice, education, health, and housing. So we're always about that business every single day. But I have also taken on a second job, which is to build a multi-sports complex here in West Louisville. West Louisville is a typical urban area impacted significantly by redlining. Really no significant economic investment for many, many years. And so we have decided to move forward with building a $35 million or so sports complex, which will be housed on 24 acres. Right now, those acres it's a contaminated site.
Okay.
It's a brownfield. So we'll be cleaning that up and giving young people and others an opportunity to enjoy track and field in our community. So we'll build the sports complex with track as the anchor sport. It will have a hydraulic floor.
Wow.
When that floor drops off track season, it's going to be amazing.
That is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Wow.
I am so excited about it. I'm exhausted because fundraising is hard and trying to raise awareness without a marketing budget is tough. Yeah. But I know that it's the right thing to do. We really do need investment in urban communities that bring people in with disposable dollars so that the people who live here will have amenities. That's what we usually don't have in so many of these urban areas are the amenities. So often we're in food deserts.
That's right.
We have life expectancy 12 years shorter because of all of the policies and laws that have been put in place to really keep us out of the economy. And so, we've been in the economy, but just haven't been making money off of it.
Let me stop you right there. Sadiqa, let me ask you this one question that's relevant to the funding mechanism. $35 million at this point now.
You're talking about for the athletic complex.
Yes, for the complex.
Yeah.
So my question is, has the city of Louisville, number one, and then what about the state of Kentucky, and then number three, what about the business community, the corporate community in Louisville? I guess the Yum spokes and maybe some others.
Have they bought into it?
Yes, that's my question. I'm going there, but
you're moving kind of slow, man.
I'm sick, sir. So my question is, are you getting that public-private partnership piece that all large projects really need in our inner cities? Are you getting that?
So let me say I am. We have had an outpouring of support, first of all, from community. I think that was really important, just for people to say, yes, we want this. So obviously we don't have 100% community support, but we're at 95 or so. I mean, it's pretty amazing, and that's across the board. The government, the local government under Mayor Fisher, has allocated $10 million for this project. This also had to go before council. We had both Republicans and Democrats vote to accept the budget, which included $10 million for this project. So they have been supportive. On the state side, it looks like we're going to get help on the environmental cleanup piece of this.
Great.
And we have also been able to raise some private dollars, but what hasn't happened yet, the foundations haven't kicked in yet, and that may just be a matter of timing. And then obviously the business community, we will definitely need their support. So we are really just beginning the fundraising stages of this. But I expect for everybody in this community to step up and do what they know is right, because I think I've really never seen anything with this kind of public support across the board, regardless of R or D or I. It's been pretty amazing.
Wow, and you're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network, with our special guest, our sister Sadiqa Reynolds. I want to ask you a little bit, because you mentioned about the support you were getting from the local government and from the state government. Are you all getting any support from the federal government through its Brownfields Economic Development Initiative? Because there's always been some funding there for those types of projects. So are you all getting any love from Washington on this? What I think, any dollars that come from the state, I think are going to be brownfield environmental dollars that have come through the federal government. And so we don't have it yet, so we'll see how that works out. But as I said, I expect everybody to do what is right for this community, and so that would include putting their dollars in. So I have no reason to think that anyone who has access to resources would keep them away from the Urban League and from West Louisville. So cautiously optimistic, or optimistic anyway, that this project is going to be a success from all aspects, with contributions from all aspects. And we're going to come back and talk with you about it as it goes along, and we're going to wish you luck and help you in any way we can, okay?
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you all.
Now you mentioned Mayor Fisher, and we were talking about just politics in general, but I noticed that I think there's a pretty serious mayoral race going on in Louisville right now, is there not?
There's a mayoral race, absolutely, yep. Mm-hmm. Every one of them is serious.
Well, I say serious to the point of contention, because usually, there's a whole new political dynamic going on, and we just want to know just how things are working in Louisville with the council and with the mayoral elections down there now.
Yeah, I mean, things are working. I mean, we have an election coming up, and so we will see what happens. As you all know, the Urban League is a nonpartisan organization,
sure.
So we support whoever supports us. So I hope everybody is down with helping this community. I hope that whoever moves forward understands that we expect a commitment, that all lives certainly matter, Black lives matter, and we must, and this is important, we have evidence in this city and across the country that everybody else's life matters. It is right to say Black Lives Matter. And so if it means something to you, then you need to invest in it, because we all know it's the policies in this country that have broken the backs of Black people, and we need policies to fix it. So we are interested in supporting any leader who's interested in that.
And speaking about those leaders, I want to bring you in on this. Let's kind of switch gears a little bit. I want to go on a national piece. For the first time, I think ever, right, Doc? You've got 3 potential gubernatorial candidates who can be governors of states around the country. You mean like at the same? Yeah, at the same time. I mean, I think we've had Douglas back then when he was running by himself. You had a couple others, but they weren't running at the same time.
Never at the same damn
exactly.
time.
So now you got a Gillum, you got Stacy down there, you got Ben Jealous, who I was with last week. So all of these folks are out there. What do you see? And if you just put your political hat on just for a minute, we're not talking about the National Urban League, just your political hat. How do you see this thing playing out? And I don't even want to discount those sisters who are running for Congress and who have knocked these primaries out of the ballpark. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what's interesting is that we are really living through interesting times. In some ways, we are regressing, and in other ways, this line in the sand is being drawn, and people have really got to decide whether they are for justice and equity or not. And so in doing that, it is really empowering. So part of, I think, the revolution of now, and I do believe something is stirring, because this very outwardly bold way of saying things that have been whispered for so long, I think is really changing
and forcing some people to be allies who didn't think it was necessary for them to be that.
Preach.
And so you do see that coming across in politics. You see people of color, you see black people really rising to the top and being elected and running for office and coming through primaries. And I think that has to do with folks really understanding that, listen, we've always sort of been called in to clean up, I think.
That's
I
right.
think that's
right.
been,
yeah.
that's what happens, right? You find this mess, and so how do we get through this? And I think we have been, unfortunately or fortunately, very good at coming in and going, okay, wait a minute, recession, let's push button, let's reset, let's do this. But the other part of it is, you cannot have this sort of blatant racism that is happening now in our country and continue to just remain neutral. It does not inspire neutrality. It inspires action. And so what you see from that is what you have in all of these cities and states where folks are running for office and coming up, on top. So in that sense, I am inspired and motivated, and while I am concerned about the regression of America, I also see some progress because of so much very, very explicit negativity.
And you're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazukian Network. But my issue seems to be that I listen to a lot of commentary from all aspects, all cultures, all shows, everyone. And I don't hear anyone actually outward saying that this is what you see is, particularly with the rise of African-American women in politics, this is the antithesis of what you're looking at on the other side. And people are tired of what they're seeing with and nothing against white males, but they're tired of philosophy that's being doled down by that majority government amongst people with whom they have no relation. And they look more and more tone deaf each day. No one seems to be saying, this is a time where African Americans are actually becoming more conscious about their politics. They'll use words like Democratic Party, liberal movement, progressive movement, but no one is saying this is an African American movement.
It is.
It is. And I mean, would you not agree? This is an African American movement, and I don't think anybody's recognizing it as such. And I think it's time that we do that.
Yeah, it may be an African American movement, but it is not an African American movement alone, and it really never has been. And so I think we have to be aware of the fact that there are other people who are beginning to step up with us and allies who are beginning to step out that haven't always been there. So now all of a sudden we're in some cases finding alignment with the unusual suspects. So I think that we
unusual
do have
to who would unusual suspects be?
Well, I mean, just those white folks who have benefited so much from their privilege and haven't stepped out when they saw certain things going wrong, when they've seen policy either didn't understand or didn't choose to understand. And now, because things are so very blatant, all of a sudden are beginning to say, wait a minute, here, let's do this, let's try this, or I'm going to stand up in this space. I think you are seeing some of that. And as far as white males go, I don't think they can deny. Well, they may deny it, but we
I think they do it on a regular basis.
They
try to anyway. On a regular basis,
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I think they try to deny it on a regular basis anyway.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think there is an attempt sometimes to deny the privilege and the power and the creation of the policies that have created what we have here now. And so I don't know why certain people in this country continue to get another shot at trying to make it great. It's time for some other folks to have voices and to be able to sit at the table to reconstruct some of this. And I think we all know that a large part of what's happening now is fear. Part of it is fear because of the increasing majority minority shifts and all of that, but then also part of this is just is about money, right, and economics. Right. And there are lots of people who believe that they care a lot, but they're also making money right now, and this administration is benefiting them. And so the concern is, we don't want to. We like these tax breaks. We like this. And this is good for business. And at some point, the thing is going to happen. I don't know when or what it's going to be. That's going to force some of our business leaders to choose. Are we going to really go down this? We're going to continue to go down this path. Focus solely on economics, because I am sure that Hitler had a very good case on the economy side, right? But
Sure.
we need to not go there.
Speaking of a totalitarian or a dictatorship, I don't want to call that out of D.C. But do you ever see in our lifetime, and you and I and Doc, we're pretty young, so do you ever see in our lifetime a balance of African Americans joining the Republican Party? Just a political view. Do you ever see that?
No.
Wow.
Not the way, not.
No. Understand?
Yeah.
But see, we got to realize that.
But it's a very simple reason why.
This is not.
It's a very simple reason why.
Trump Republican
But
Party.
it's a very simple reason why.
All right.
And I don't care if it was Trump Republican Party, Bush Republican Party, or Reagan Republican Party. There just has not been in recent years any agenda produced by the Republican Party that has anything that's correlative to what African Americans' interests are. And I know we're not it's not monolithic,
No, we're not.
but there's nothing out there that's been in any way agreeable to what African Americans' plight is for economic enrichment, educational development, or any of our values.
Well,
and until they get that going, or at least allow other African Americans to join it, you're never going to see it.
Well, on that note, we'll be right back with our very special guest, a phenomenal woman, Sadiqa Reynolds, who happens to be the president.
You gotta
She loves that.
You got to put the Q in it.
Sadiqa is what I said. Who happens to be the president and executive director of the Louisville National Urban League. Is that right? That's it, right?
No, the Louisville Urban League.
The Louisville Urban League.
National about it.
Okay, it's
the
a Louisville.
Urban
How can it be Louisville and national at
I
the
don't
same
know.
time?
I'm not feeling well, y'all.
Oh,
on the show
my
today.
God.
Whatever.
And you're not spelling well, and you're not thinking well.
The Louisville.
We're going to get you there, bro.
We'll be right back here on Funky Politics, powered by the Kazukian Network.
Y'all hang on.
We got the funk. Funky Politics on the Kazukian Network.
Artivism, Funky Politics, R&R on Sports, Neighborhood Connect, Blues in the Basement, Riffin' on Jazz. Your three black chicks, Best in Blue, Kazukian, Kudzian.
Kazukian. We got the funk. Funky Politics on the Kazukian Network.
Do you remember when we fell in love? We were young and innocent then. Do you remember how it all began?
We're back here on Funky Politics on the Kazukian Network. I'm DC. Doc Ward sitting here to my left or my right. It just depends on where I'm at in this room. But I think it's my left. Looks like my left. Yeah, that's right, my left.
Your other left.
Yeah, I get confused on that left-right thing a little bit. It was an elementary school. It was an elementary school deal I had going on. But anyway, we've been talking with world famous Sadiqa Reynolds, who happens to be the president and the executive director of the Urban League of Louisville. I said it right, Urban League of Louisville. So the Louisville Urban League, right? Did I say that right, guys? Are y'all pleased or y'all not pleased? He's giving me this look.
Do I have a vote?
No, you don't, woman.
Yes, you have.
I'm like Mister on here. Don't you touch that mailbox.
Yes, you have. Wait a minute, you're like Mister.
No, I don't want to be.
You don't
like
want to be like Mister during
Okay,
this
let's go on with this show.
You sure don't want to be like Mister.
Mister was a strong brother. What y'all got a problem?
Till you do right by me.
There you
Well,
go.
everything
you do gonna crumble.
You do gonna fail.
It's
Till
gonna
you
crumble.
say my name right. It's Sadiqa. No, Qua. Sadiqa. Sadiqa.
I like to put special
Till you
emphasis
say
on
my
Qua.
name right.
She said, "Say her name.
Sadiqa.
Say her name.
Sadiqa.
Say
Is
it
that
again."
Sadiqa.
Sadiqa.
Let's talk. Let's get back in this show here. Activism and politics. Since you've last been with us, of course, we talked previously about some of these big names who've hit the stage, the world. Well, we said the world stage because not at one time I don't think we've seen three African Americans stand for office, running for the governor's races in various states. I'll say this: it is really, really breathtaking to see this. I mean, it's awesome, But we also got some young ladies and some brothers out there, and some folks who are from some other communities who represent some of the underserved people in our country. They're winning as well. Activism, though. Activism. How do we get our folks activated, ready to get out there and vote, Sadiqa? How do we do that?
Well, great question. I think it is. A lot of us are voting, and many aren't. People are really exhausted by a system that they don't always feel like is working for them.
And I think it's important for those of us who know and understand how important it is to vote that we help energize people, that we help get them to the polls, that we help change policies that make them feel excluded. We push back on voting voter ID laws, and all of these sorts of things, that we push back on failure to restore citizens' rights after they have served their time. So we help our communities change by being more welcoming to folks who really do feel like they are not wanted to participate in our system. Obviously, we also need to educate folks and say, listen, we want change, but this is what we have right now, and I can't express to you enough how important it is. I think all organizations who claim to hold activists in their organizations need to be at these high schools, registering 18-year-olds to vote the minute they turn 18, so we need to regularly be doing that, and we've been trying to do that at the Louisville Urban League, and others are doing that. We had a woman in our community here, Hannah Drake, who started a church drive. She just said, I want all churches on this weekend to be registering people to vote. Across the country, we need that kind of leadership coming from, not just from the Urban League, not just from the NAACP, but from the churches, from everybody. I think these ministers have an obligation to make sure that people sitting in the pews are registered to vote, and they've got to preach about it, talk about it, teach about it, tie it to the Bible or whatever people need it tied to, because it is imperative that folks show up. There can be no excuses.
Wow.
So I think that's what we've got to do. And we can't leave everything to somebody else. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we think, everybody else will take care of that, and it all belongs to all of us. And the other thing I do want to say, sometimes we're so hard on ourselves and each other, and I think we have to be careful not to be so judgmental with each other that we paralyze our community.
What do you mean when you say we're hard on each other? I know what that means, but what's an example it sounds like there's an example somewhere in that.
Well, I just think that I saw something today, or somebody was talking about, why can't we all just agree on something? And there's no community where everybody agrees. We're not a monolithic community. I think you said that earlier.
Yes.
We have to be willing, though, to have dialogue and to have exchanges, and to recognize that while we may disagree on certain issues, there are going to be times when we can come together. And the white community doesn't always agree. The rich community doesn't always agree. There's disagreement sometimes. And now we can ill afford to publicly air our stuff, and so we do need to be careful about that. But we also need to be willing to allow each other to have, different perspectives and different points of view. And I think it's just.
So you're saying, are you saying that Cardi B shouldn't be fighting with Nicki Minaj all out at the fashion show? Is that what you're trying to say?
I think Cardi B and Nicki Minaj should not be fighting.
Okay, so
if they are going to fight, they need to do it in the house.
Unified front for all the hip hop.
Well, I want to go back somewhere. I want to go back somewhere real quick. And if that's the case, if that's the premise,
what, Cardi B?
Whatever. We need to respect each other's positions, right? So how is it that a Lynn Patton or an Omarosa or even poor Jerron, who's been just kind of dangled out there as the
Jerron doesn't have a say in this.
Jerron the black at the White House. But anyway, so how do we keep saying that they're not invited to the picnic when they're in the door? And I'm not even talking about that pastor. We're going to get away from that one. But
Daryl Scott?
Yeah, Daryl Scott. But they're in the door with this guy, and if they're representing
this guy being Donald Trump,
40, as Maxine says, 45.
Okay.
So if they're representing good issues that affect our communities, why can't we support them? Why can't we support that?
What issues have they put out?
Because we're not stupid.
But we're so quick though, Sadiqa. We're so quick to kill him off because we saw him at a meeting, and we saw him say, "Hey, he's a decent guy." I don't personally know him. I don't even have a clue. He may be decent. But he's shown everything that he's not.
That's insanity. You can watch watch what they've done.
No, I'm just saying he may be a good granddad.
Who are you talking about?
45.
But what does that have to do with running a country? We are talking about our very survival. We've got to be clear about who we're going to support and who we're not going to support. And there may be room for disagreement, but there are some things that we've got to be able to say, this is not in the best interest of our people.
Right.
I'll be quiet then. I'll just be quiet on the rest of the show. I'm going to shut up.
I think you can invite them to the barbecue, but you can't.
But that's what I want to do.
But you can't tell them to bring anything.
Table.
Some people don't need to be in leadership, and I think the people that you named don't need to be in any representative leadership for the African American community. I know they have. I know Omarosa has done things she's accomplished for herself, but as far as a leader of any faction of any African American people, I haven't seen it, and I'm not going to see it. And I've had opportunity to see it, and she's had opportunity to do it now in the White House. The only thing she's walked away with is something that benefits her, which is wonderful for her. But it's not in any way helping us as African Americans. So she needs to take a rest. She needs to learn from somebody that has been a leader. She needs to go to Louisville and hang out with Sadiqa and learn how. I didn't say you.
I already bought the plane ticket for her.
I'm telling you what she needs to do. She needs to go and hang out with Sadiqa and learn how to put together a $35 million athletic field for African Americans. She needs to go to some other places in other cities and see how leadership, African American, real true African American leadership is taking place. Emulate that, and then maybe put some spin on it. I don't have any issue with the African American Republican. The first African Americans in leadership were Republicans. We know the story.
Sure they were.
But it's all about.
But that was a different. We know
it's different.
A different party with a different agenda.
Right.
That's not even a relevant conversation right now. Like this, the things that are happening in our country require people to be attentive to the needs of our community. We have survived slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, all kinds of police brutality. We are still dealing with this stuff. We're still dealing with economic
apartheid,
economic deprivation.
There you go.
Food desert, life expectancy. It makes no sense that in the wealthiest country in the world that you can still predict life or death by zip code. I mean, there are things that really do need to be addressed. So when I'm not here to be critical of anybody, I don't have time for that. I have zero time to spend on what somebody else should be doing. But I think it speaks volumes that you have certain people pushing someone's agenda, and the vast majority of the black community did not buy in.
Right.
So we have already determined who will not be a leader. So that's not for me to determine. I am in no position to be training anybody. I don't ever want to be up like that. I don't even want to be put up like that, because then that creates all kinds of bullseyes on my back. But what I do want is to be clear about my commitment is to my people. And that doesn't mean that it's against anybody else. It's not, because I think this country will be great when we all have the same opportunities, when there really is equity and justice and all of that stuff. But these leaders who are about bowing down and telling you to bow down to somebody who's pushing policy that is not in the interest of your community, no. We can do better than that, and we've already shown that we have, and that we can, and we will continue to.
And this is Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network, with Miss Sadiqa Reynolds. Well, you I mean, I say it right
because she didn't want.
I can say Q. I love
I'm sorry.
Q. Yeah, I can say it.
I'll back up.
Yeah,
I'll back up.
Back up. But I think what you were talking about, absolutely, and by no means am I saying that the first African Americans are Republicans, therefore anything now. And we understand the philosophy was different.
No,
the timing was different.
Good radio.
The time was different. Good radio. But I will say this, and to add on to what you're saying, we need real leadership. We don't need token leadership. Now, of all times, it's definitely not time for token leadership. And I think those people that are running in the various districts, African American candidates that have emerged, are representing right now true organic leadership of their constituencies. That's what I see anyway. We'll know as time goes on, the elections go on. But now back to what you were saying as far as people getting out to vote, and you pretty much had a whole shotgun approach. You approached those who had no rights, to those who have all rights, to students, to people that just have not been voting. But how do you develop the actual motivating platform for people to vote? I understand we could talk about the importance of it, but a lot of people have become a little disgusted with voting because they're saying nothing's going to change. There's nothing out there that affects me. There's nothing out there that's going to be positive for me. I don't see anything positive for me. So how do you motivate those folks, in 10 seconds or less, who may not understand all the policy and everything else, but they're just saying that nothing's going to change because they're not seeing anything changing in their world to vote.
I think we have to have candidates that motivate people. I think people motivate people, and we have got to make sure that we're putting forth candidates that actually inspire and can help identify issues to get people out there. Because at the end of the day, I mean, people come out for that. And so you think about Obama's campaign. I mean, people were inspired. They felt hopeful. They felt like they had the opportunity to change something. And so that's what we need to make sure of, whichever party. You know, I always try to say we're a nonpartisan organization, but believe me, we support people that support us.
Well, how do we sustain that, though? Because I remember Barack Obama came out and everybody, I don't care if you've been voting all your life, you all of a sudden, even if you were for him or against him, you all of a sudden felt differently about the world you were living in. And it wasn't a bad feel. It was about, you know, there's a different calling going on right now. There's a different level of inspiration going on right now. And then he was gone, and we had the next election, and the same spirit was not there. Nothing against Hillary Clinton at all, but the same spirit was not there. The same enthusiasm was not there. So you don't have a black candidate anymore. How do you sustain the movement even when you don't have the black candidate in the race? Because we're still, regardless, we're still going to be around. We're still going to need to elect officials and leaders. So how do you do that?
Well, I think I mean, even beyond the presidential elections, I mean, locally, you have to have candidates that inspire people. I mean, you cannot continue to put forth lukewarm, middle-of-the-road candidates. We see now that you can be elected in this country and be extreme, right? I mean, we just saw it. So people really need to stand in their truth. We need folks to run for office who are willing to stand for something. Now, it may cost them the office or it might not, but we need people who will stand. That is what these times call for.
Whose responsibility Whose responsibility to put it forward? Is it the party's responsibility? Nonprofits, private sector, religious sector? Who's responsible for putting those folks forward?
I think it's all of us. I think we all are responsible. I don't think any of us get to pass the buck because this is our country, and we all have an obligation to try to improve it. And so we will grow leaders wherever we can find them and try to help and push them forward. And the thing about it is recognizing that all are going to be somewhat flawed. But we've got to do, all of us, a better job at communicating the issues and the impact of not voting. What could happen? Here's what happens when you don't show up. So I know you think you don't have a lot of power, but let me tell you the power you give up when you don't show up. And we're going to have to run those kinds of campaigns. We'll need celebrities do it. I mean, this is tough stuff. I get it. I understand it. But we've got to be non-traditional about where we go to help register voters and to get them out. And that's why I'm saying even when people are turning 18, when they're excited about the opportunity to do new things, we need to be in there trying to get them registered. When folks are being let out of jail, I mean, if they don't have a felony conviction or depending on where they are, we need to be there, register them. You know, we need to be at these churches and the mosque and all of these different places that we have to do it. And again, I know everybody thinks it's somebody else's role, but I think it's going to take all of us because you can motivate somebody that I can't. You can get through to somebody that I can't get through to. So I'll do my part if you promise to do yours. And check this out. I'm so committed, I'm going to do my part if you don't do yours.
Wow.
But we're going to leave some people behind without you.
This is what happens when you don't show up.
All hands on deck.
This is what happens when you don't show up. But because she showed up and showed out, I feel like a Baptist. I'm about to tune up, Doc. But anyway.
No, you're not.
Sadiqa, once again, you have proven your mettle. You are a thought leader in our country, and we wish you the very best of everything that's happening in Louisville. I'm sure the national stage is just awaiting you to do some bigger and better things. Come back and see us again here on Funky Politics. Will you do that
before you get too big?
I will, and I promise you all, I'm going to be right here in Louisville building my track. This is what I want to do. I want to be here building this facility, changing this community, improving the economic situation for the community that this building sits in. I promise you, I will be right here working hard to get this thing done. It's going to take me a couple of years, but I am going to get it done. And I just appreciate the love you guys give me. Thank you so much for always including me.
Well, you're welcome so much. Continue to press forward to the mark of high calling. And always remember to keep it real, right, and funky with us, and we'll do the same for you. And we enjoy having you here, right here on the Kazuki Network, Funky Politics.
DC and Doc Ward on Funky Politics. Riffin' on Jazz.
This next gentleman we're talking about has an unforgettable voice.
My sugar is so refined.
Jazz was the happiest. Now, Calloway went to my school.
Oh, really?
Yes, he's not an alum because he didn't graduate. He had some gigs to do.
Riffin' on Jazz on the Kazukian Network.